People, what's up? Hey, you know what? 15 minutes for us ain't too bad. That ain't too bad. So, I'm sick. I'm actually sick. But the show must go on. So, apologies if I sound nasally. Let me just check I'm on the right microphone. I am. Fantastic. And yeah, nasally Matty today. And we've got so much Seahawks free agency stuff to talk about that there might not even be time for a preamble. Griff, is there time for a preamble?
We can skip the preamble. Hit it, Matty.
Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where we're going to be diving into 2024 Seahawks free agency days 2 and 3. Yep, we covered a day 1 where Seattle didn't do as much as maybe people were expecting, and free agency is moving especially fast this year, something we can talk about. But now, after 2 extra days, a lot of things have happened. Players have left, players have joined. I don't actually know where to start. I guess we should probably cover the ones who were on the roster already or were on the roster in 2023 and are coming back. So defensive tackle Myles Adams has been tendered as an exclusive rights free agent. So the 26-year-old's returning to Seattle under contract for 2024 at the minimum salary. He appeared in 11 games for Seattle last season and had 1 sack. The Seahawks also used an original round tender, so 5th round tender on cornerback Michael Jackson. And then they used a right of first refusal tender on linebacker Jon Rhattigan. Free agent corner Artie Burns is also returning to the Seahawks on a 1-year kind of deal. The Seahawks extended Darrell Taylor before his restricted free agent deadline today, so we'll have to see the terms of that contract. We're yet to learn that. And yeah, that's the returning Seahawks players. Griff, do you have any takes on this sort of stuff?
Bringing the one that jumps out to me. The other guys just seems like most of it seems like just housekeeping, right? But then Darrell Taylor's the one surprise, maybe, right? Because I mean, like we know what his career has been. It's been disappointing. He seems to have gotten worse every year. The run defense just regresses and regresses. They kind of had a crisis of edge run defense last year after Nwosu went down. Darrell Taylor had to play more snaps. Derek Hall just wasn't ready, although I think he will be good. But so obviously to bring him back when you didn't need to bring him back because you still had 2 edges you really like and then a third one that could be something. And then you can go ahead and draft a guy and just kind of have a body that can eat snaps, right? So to bring him back with the new head coach, they clearly think they can kind of resurrect him into getting a baseline of play because obviously he's still explosive. I don't think he gave them nothing in pass rush last year. In the first half of the season, I mean, he was getting those wins that he normally gets. He was just getting a little unlucky. Serendipity was on his side in terms of actually getting the sack. But he had a few near sacks. But then in the second half of the season, it even seemed like the pass rush was waning. And the run defense just wasn't there. So clearly they've done a deep dive. I'm sure McDonald has and John on his tape. And, they feel that they can do something with him. And we don't have the numbers yet, but I really wonder what the numbers are. If it's anything like substantial or significant, that will be interesting and very indicative of what they think of him. Because surely they could have they needed every dollar theoretically to be competitive in the linebacker market, which they have not been. So you wonder, is that more financial constraint? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't even know.
Interesting.
We don't even know the length of the extension. So it's
Right.
kind of a very odd deal where is there any reason that they do it for cap purposes? Like
I don't know. I mean, they've got 4 guys there. As we know, the defensive interior has 5 guys under contract right now. So in the draft, you can carry 5 edges, but I don't feel like they're going to. It doesn't feel like they're going to spend a day 1 pick or even a day 2 pick on an edge.
Right, and if you look at the draft class in terms of the edge rushers, I mean, I haven't dived into it, but I know people who have as
Well,
well, and it
yeah,
doesn't look particularly attractive or
right.
deep. And even the top tier, which is part of kind of how the middle stuff looks a bit funky as well. Even the top tier is not like your, past years where there's guys you think could hit the best of the best, right?
Right. There's like 4 guys, maybe 5 that should go in the 20s, it feels like. The
Hmm.
more I watched Turner, the more I was like, hey, he should go like pick 22. You know,
Right, like were you big on Will Anderson or Turner?
well, I mean, Will Anderson was awesome.
Exactly.
I don't think Turner is at that level. He lacks the play strength.
Right.
Um, like I still like him, right? But it's
Yeah,
just
it's an
he
unfair
should go to
comparison. It's
20.
just to point out that Turner's the number one guy in the class, right?
And well, I mean, even if you prefer, like, there's 4 guys. So Verse, Latu, Turner, Chop
Mm,
Robinson. I don't care if you're dogmatic about any one of them over the other. I just don't think that any of them are separating themselves enough to be like, this guy's firmly edge one.
right. And in previous drafts, they may have been going sort of 16 to 20 rather than, and they, that's maybe where some of them do go with the quarterbacks in this draft, but they might get pushed up into the top 10 just because
Right.
there isn't that kind of top tier. And then after those guys, in terms of the edges, I haven't really seen anything yet. So yeah, in terms of Taylor, and Misfit in the chat pointing out his 9th in pass rush win rate, and that, I mean, that is a thing, but I think also it speaks to the way he wins and that type of metric where it's measuring like the separation and ability to like beat whatever that kind of means a block within 2.5 seconds. Well, think about his speed rush off the edge. It's gonna probably get separation on tackles quite a lot of the time. It's whether he's able to then restrict the corner. I think maybe in a McDonald's scheme, not to get too kind of in the weeds, but in a McDonald's scheme, he fits well because there's going to be a lot of implied pressure, a lot of interior stuff, and if he's just rushing a reliable edge one-on-one each time and winning the corner, that's big. But some kind of just vibe stuff I got was that he was really struggling under Clint Hurt as his D-line coach, and Hurt, of course, was coaching the outside linebackers last year through the run defense stuff as well. And yeah, as you said, Griff, he kind of disappeared towards the end of last season, and the progress he had made in run defense kind of vanished as well. They didn't really trust him in the run defense either. So this is right. We need to see the terms because it feels like
Right.
a 180, but it also feels like Jon Rhattigan going, "Hey, whatever happened, this guy can be absolutely brilliant." And he turns 27 in 11 days' time. So
Right.
is this like him saying, give me like a slight 1 year to prove it and then, or 2 year to prove it, and then I'll still get like a big payday when I've proven it? Or,
Right.
yeah, it's very, very peculiar.
Yeah,
So,
it's entirely possible. There's like 0 guarantees in there. And, they're depending on how the draft shakes out. If there's a guy that's there and they take him, then it's like, go get a chance to play for another team type of thing, because you're not going to get snaps in that case. But I don't know, or maybe that's not what they're angling for. I have no idea. Just like you said, we have to see the terms.
yeah. Now, Michael Jackson, that's someone that you spoke about as potentially maybe being able to convert to safety, but he's always been pretty damn solid as a corner. He just gets sort of overlooked, underrated, and I think he can do a bit of the things McDonald's asking for, and he preaches versatility on the back end. Jon Rhattigan is almost essential given the linebacker situation right now, but he's done solid things on special teams.
Don't forget about Patrick O'Connell.
Oh, that's right, they're not the same person.
He
Hey, we like Patrick O'Connell. In the
he
preseason, we were like, hey, this guy can play football, kind of.
yeah, kind of.
Yeah. When is St. Patrick's Day? It's coming up, right?
4 days.
There we go.
Is
Will
St.
he still
Patrick's
be
Day-
the projected starter at linebacker in 4 days' time?
Is St. Patrick's Day a big deal over there? Is it a little complicated? I mean, is it complicated? Is that a sore subject?
I don't think it's complicated. I think it's an excuse for people who want to drink loads of Guinness and sort of pretend that they're Irish.
Oh, I see.
But in Ireland,
Um,
obviously, it's a big deal. Anyway, let's
right.
move on. Myles Adams
Northern
as
Ireland, or
well.
just kidding, or just the Republic of Ireland.
Myles Adams. I mean, this is kind of the last year for it all to come together for him. Is
Right.
someone who we felt has flashed in the past, but how they use him this coming year is going to be interesting. If they do just view him as like a cheap, available depth piece who fits in when needed and does okay, or if they actually do say, hey, maybe he could be a bit more as like a one gap three technique player, which seems to be his best stuff.
Right.
Anyway, it was last year was a kind of downwards regression for him, but we're looking to get back to it. And then Artie Burns is, I guess he did pretty solid stuff as the nickel for Seattle.
I mean, did he? He kind of had some rough games. He
Hey,
did
it's a
some stuff
tough.
that was
He did
interesting.
some. He did okay.
I think the Steelers game is a bit of a problem. The entire second level was a problem. I'm more fascinated by Artie as an outside player. I mean, he has cover skills. I thought he played admirably inside because it's something he's never done before. He
Yeah.
did show some stuff, but like I would hope that he could actually factor in on the outside competition. He played the last.
Oh no, chat. What do we think happened to Griff here? Do you think so? Sweepstakes, internet,
We're back.
charger, internet.
No, my internet went out for 5 seconds.
That was remarkable, incredible. Anyway, as we were
Yeah.
saying, he
Anyway,
played
anyway,
Artie Burns, outside guy. Oh no,
am I am I here?
you are here. You could try perhaps refreshing.
No, I think we're good. I'm at full bars. Anyway,
Okay.
I think I was saying that I would like to see Artie outside.
Yes, and
But whatever.
really, that's his
What do you think?
value is that not only does he kind of free up Devon Witherspoon, if they want him outside with Burns, I think he could do nickel in a pinch, right? Okay, there were some rough moments, but also he pushes, and he's played on the right side a tiny bit for Seattle, especially in camps. He pushes Reek Woolen in a way that is like a necessity, and regardless of what they do in the draft, it just means that they enter the draft without like a obvious depth hole there. Let's not talk about depth holes yet, though. Um, so yeah, a
Mm,
fine addition.
mm.
All right, so free agents. Seattle's actually signed people. Can you imagine that? So I will list them all, right? And then we'll get into the contract terms that we know. Chat, please do keep us updated live if there are more contract terms which come out. I think I have all of them so far. So, former Browns offensive lineman Nick Harris signed to Seattle. George Fant, the left tackle, signed back to Seattle. Pharoah Brown, tight end, to Seattle. Rayshawn Jenkins, the safety, to Seattle. And was there another one? No, that's it, isn't it? Fantastic. Other noteworthy news, I guess, before we get into those names, is that Drew Lock signed elsewhere. He was signed with the New York Giants, so Seattle is without a backup quarterback. Of course, Lock, who came in the Russell Wilson trade and seemed like kind of a guy who Schneider was feeling good about trying to fix. So then Ryan Grubb was seen at Oregon's Pro Day scouting Bo Nix, presumably, and other Oregon players. So I don't know how much you want to read into that one. Grubb probably just getting his eyes on the quarterbacks
Yeah.
because he's intrigued by that, always has been. I think he was mentioning how he was down at a combine in a previous year just looking at the quarterbacks throw because that's just kind of what he's interested in. And I'm sure you can learn a lot from that. So anyway, Griff, do you want to talk about the quarterbacks or do you want to take us to the first free agent?
No, I imagine they'll do their due diligence on all the mid-round guys. So
Mid-round, I've seen Bo Nix as high as 12.
hey, if by all means, as many quarterbacks in the top 15, I'm all for it because that means someone's dropping.
That means Penix is the last one, and you have to take him.
Spaghetti-O.
Okay, continue.
I really think there are only two guys I'd take in the first at this point.
Drake May and Caleb Williams.
Yeah, the more I've watched of Jaden Daniels, the more I'm thinking this guy should go in the second for his own good. Because if you take him,
it's the expectation and just the way that he plays as well. I don't think taking him in the first is gonna make that any better.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, what free agent do you want to talk about? New Seahawks signing.
Well, we should do. I mean, the big one first, right? Rayshawn Jenkins.
Okay, let's do that. So, Rayshawn Jenkins, the contract terms just came out as we came on air. It's a $12 million deal over 2 years with $6.6 million in year one. It's pretty similar, as Bob Condotta of the Seattle Times noted, to Julian Love's contract. PFF Seahawks has Jenkins allowing just one touchdown on 677 coverage snaps and a passer rating of 63.7 when targeted in 2023. Pinch of salt there, but interesting details. He was a fourth-round pick of the... Well, I'm not going to say that. He was a fourth-round pick of Jacksonville, and in 2017 started 80 of 109 games for them. Started all 34 games over the past 2 seasons, recording 217 tackles, 21 passes defensed, 5 interceptions, 2 sacks, and 10 tackles for loss over that span. He also tested very, very impressive coming out of Miami. He was the type of player you wondered if Seattle would take because he has nearly 33-inch long arms. He had a 10-foot 8-inch broad jump, and he ran a 4.5 140 at 214 pounds, 6'1". So he's tall, he's big, he's explosive, and he's long. So very intriguing. Griff, what do you think to Jenkins?
I think that he was a very quality option to get of the market that was there, and the fact that they're paying Andre Diggs $10 million in dead cap hit. They had to be under 11 million. Otherwise, why would you cut Diggs? Because with his cap hit being 21 million, so you were kind of looking at that sub 7 million, sub 8 million range. Between him, Bell, and Chin. And I guess Geno Stone, given what his contract was, I think this made sense. He is slightly older, but it's only a 2-year deal, and he's not showing any signs of slowing down. Jacksonville cut him. I don't think they wanted to pay his contract, but he's still a quality player. So I think this makes sense. Also, he's versatile, so he can play the big nickel stuff, but I do think he struggles with contact, like blockers and stuff, but he actually is pretty skilled moving in the box, like staying lateral. He knows how to fill. He can function as a classic cover 3 strong safety, for example. He knows how to move around in the box. He just has to be clean. So obviously that translates to him being a little bit of a big nickel, but I think his deep coverage, his shell coverage is pretty good. His quarters coverage is pretty tight. And then he has the range to play like a cover 2 shell to the field, right? Where you're tasked with a lot of space. And it's nothing crazy. It's just solid. It's the same theory as the Julian Love signing. I think he offers a little bit more if you're just going off comparing his Jacksonville tape to Julian's New York tape. And then you're kind of getting into that realm. And Matty, you said this, that versatility where they can play left and right with them. Because Julian can play in the box too. So you've got 2 guys that can play deep well enough and 2 guys that in theory can play in the box well enough. So you can, it helps the disguise, right? So you don't become predictable of who's playing what.
I saw very similar things. And I think what stands out to me is that type of Jacksonville defense. They're really trying to disguise what their rotation is. And that's what McDonald is going to try and do. And Jenkins' familiarity with that. And often he was the guy who's really putting some flavor and sauce to the pre-snap look. I think that is something that McDonald required. He needed from his safeties to be comfortable doing that. And then in Jacksonville, I don't think he is a big nickel coming into Seattle. I think it'll be probably kind of similar to what he did in Jacksonville in that he's more of a strong type, But what that means in the split safety system is you're more often going to put him in the deep quarter than you will in the deep half. Like you said, Griff, he can do the deep half, but the deep quarter means he's kind of playing a tiny bit closer to the line of scrimmage, even though he's a deep player, but also playing a bit tighter to the tight end, a bit more involved in the run at times, all that type of stuff. And then, as you said, Griff, he can play down in the box in the cover 3 thing. And I think compared to Julian Love, I think just the size of Jenkins, he probably gets a few more assignments down in the box than Love does, but they will be aiming for that kind of left and right versatility thing where there isn't an obvious box safety, there's an obvious deep safety, and they're moving around before the snap to try and disguise their coverage shell, their coverage rotation, and being able to get from playing low, being able to get to their deep zone responsibility comfortably, which Jenkins can do. The real issue I saw from him, and I tweeted out a clip of it, his angles and just finishing on plays and the ball and hitting at times is really lacking. And I think he had quite a few missed tackles one season as well, and he needs to dive into that a bit more. But it's kind of, he could be, his best football could still arrive, but it's how do you get him finishing and taking better angles and stuff. I mean, he looks to move really well. It's just when it's time to make the play, that the play isn't made sometimes.
I think watching him, I don't think he has a high frequency of bad plays. It's just his bad plays are particularly awful.
Right.
There aren't that many of them. It's just they stand out so much. Like, granted, it's Derrick Henry, but he has 3 snaps against the Titans where it's just like, that was horrific. He probably wants to burn that and make sure no one ever sees it type of plays against the Titans in 2022. I think that's going to be the thing with him. And I don't know how fans – when I say fans, I'm not trying to separate us from the fans. We're fans too, even though you cover the team in a more professional capacity than I do. But I feel like I don't know how fans will perceive him, because he could be playing fine and he could have his one negative play in a game, and quality players have a negative play and it could stand out in spectacular fashion.
Well, you search his name on Jacksonville Twitter and they're all there's a lot of hatred because of that kind of reason, Griff. Like broadcast copy, he stands out. I mean, this Bengals clip I tweeted out, they're condensing trips. It's pretty tricky looking. He's in a deep quarter. He plays it really aggressive and really well. Drives on the dig, perfect angle. You'd think to the dig, and then at the moment where you expect him to smack the crap out the tight end or knock the ball free, he just kind of gets caught in between two minds of, should I punch the ball? Should I tackle the guy? There's no wrap. He doesn't finish the play, and he just completely slips off the tight end in a bizarre fashion. It looks like a terrible Madden animation almost, and you end up with a catch and then about 20 yards of yak, which shouldn't have been there at all. He should have had the tackle, the sticks. Yeah. So it's that kind of lack of finishing ability that needs to I
love it. Every single Jacksonville fan thinks Rayshawn Jenkins is washed. I'm seeing that right now. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Well, you're 30, you miss a tackle once, you're washed. That's how it works. You're not good at anything. And
Monjombo's asking a good question here in the chat, and my nomenclature, it was probably misleading. To clarify, when Matty mentioned split safety, is that where either safety can drop in cover 3, or is it more general in any coverage? Well, when I mean split safety, it means basically too high. So what one guy is, they're putting the field down the middle, and they're playing one coverage. They're playing cover 4 on one side and cover 2 on the other side. But that's quite a broad term, so I should be more specific, because split safety could also mean either safety can drop in cover 3, yeah. And I don't actually think many NFL teams they don't really do split safety like Nick Saban does, where they run 2 different coverages either side or 2 different tags. It just doesn't happen in the NFL hashes, really, and just the NFL world. But the closest you get to that is cover 6, quarter, half.
Yeah. I think one other thing on Jenkins, Matty, unless you have more to say, is maybe that was just part of the negotiation, because I know he was visiting with the 49ers, but I do think it's interesting that it's a 2-year deal. And I wonder if it's kind of doubling as a hedge against Julian Love entering free agency next year. If the draft goes well, say they get a stud they really like, say they don't view that guy as a big nickel type, and they want to play him, right? Then it's natural for, Jenkins can be your Julian Love replacement in 2025, and then that draftee can be your Jenkins replacement, right, at the other spot. It kind of gives them options. So I wonder if they have that in the back of their mind, because obviously they signed Julian Love on a 2-year deal in part to get ahead of the tough decision they were going to have to make with Jamal Adams and potentially Quandre Diggs, and look where they are. So it makes sense. So that's
we should say that Jenkins is 30 years old. Like he's an older guy, and Jacksonville had him to a 4-year, $35 million contract, signed him to that in 2021. That off season, and then they've released him for kind of cap savings early March. So we need to see how this Jenkins deal, like what the guarantees are, and if they can release him in the next year for kind of, when he's 31 for good money, I guess. And to that point as well, when I spoke about the finishing or like the lack of finishing ability at 30 years old, that's not really going to improve. That's probably just 2 years at times. He probably has the odd weird play, which looks terrible, which is why he isn't getting paid like the top safeties do. That is what a top safety does. They finish the plays, especially driving from a court on a dig route, which is something that previous Seahawks safeties have been pretty good at.
The more and more I think about it, the more it's that Bradley McDougald 2018 year was a true rarity, where you get a guy at that same kind of cost where they're really truly a complete safety. And even he fell off the next year because of injuries, but anyway.
Right. Okay, should we do it financially? So the next biggest signing for the Seahawks was Pharoah Brown. What a name. The tight end was with the Patriots last year, caught 15 passes for 208 yards and a touchdown in that season. He was given by the Seahawks a $3.2 million base salary and up to $3.9 million on a 1-year deal. He's 29 years old. He's had 6 years in the league. And he's kind of known more as an inline type of blocker who can move people. And with Seattle losing Will Dissly, obviously they've re-signed Noah Fant, something we covered in our last podcast. Make sure you check that out if you haven't already. Brown is kind of that blocker type that was needed.
Yeah. And he's a good blocker. But it allows you to free Fant up to use Fant how you want, when you want. 12 personnel has just been every team should have a 12 personnel package if you can manage it, right? We saw what it did for Seattle last year. But then also when Geno is so good out of empty, slicing and dicing zone coverage out of empty, and you get mismatches if you can force base personnel, or at least kind of like a big nickel type of nickel. When you're in 12 personnel under center, you can shift into gun empty out of that. That allows Fant to function like your second slot receiver. But it's also important, though, when they do want to go 11 personnel, they want more to have an inline sequence, because if you put Fant in line, the blocking isn't going to be very good. Now, maybe you live with that so that you can then you can reap the play action rewards. But if you don't want to live with a bad run game, then you take Fant and put him off the line of scrimmage. And then he's running less valuable routes then. And if you just paid him $9.5 million per year, you don't want him to be a flat running, leak out guy. You don't want him running the slice route. Now that's still an important route. Don't get me wrong. Yards after the catch is important, but I think with this contract extension for Fant, they're trying to feature him at the second level more. So for their play action, I mean, they're going to have to lean on 12 personnel more when it's like gun 11 personnel. I mean, I still wonder what it's going to look like, but they're not going to call on Fant as much. So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling. What am I saying?
No.
What do you think? What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's what you said. It's kind of weird how tight ends are kind of like that in the league. It's so rare to have a guy who can do a bit of everything. I think Brown, when called upon as a pass catcher, a lot of it's kind of the scheme getting him the opportunity, which you can do for most tight ends, but he's a reliable catcher. I think the other factor to this is he has 209 special team snaps last season, which you need tight ends to contribute on special teams, and you probably don't want Fant doing too much of that. So, yeah, just a solid NFL vet who can be that blocker and free Fant to do more stuff and free the offense when they need to get heavier to actually run block.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I am struggling. Right. So, as long as I don't sneeze like all over my microphone, I think I'll be fine.
That'd be good.
That would be good, right? So, Nick Harris, former Browns offensive lineman, signed to a 1-year, $2.51 million deal plus incentives.
Very interesting signing.
A max contract value of $3.26 million, who's appeared in 40 career games with 4 starts. He has 281 snaps at center, 154 at right guard. Also played some fullback for the Browns. Kind of reminiscent of the Evan Brown edition. I mean, if you look at him athletically, he has just over 32-inch long arms, which Seattle likes 33 inches typically for their guards. And he tested fairly poorly, although with some explosiveness and quicks. His base value contract's too low to qualify him for compensatory free agent status, but it could change if he meets the incentives. But, yeah. Interesting addition, Griff, with Oluwatimi pushing for the starting spot at the center, but this is the competition needed. It would be disappointing if Olu wasn't the guy, right? To get that done, but obviously, as is pointed out by Mano Wargs in the chat, Scott Huff who's now the Seahawks offensive line coach. He was Harris's offensive line coach at the Washington Huskies.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So that makes sense. They obviously want depth at the position. It doesn't seem like they're bringing Evan Brown back. So their Grubb is kind of picking and choosing his depth there, which makes sense. It is interesting. He was Ethan Posic's backup in Cleveland. So I don't know if I found that.
Is that interesting?
It is interesting that they're signing Ethan Posic's backup, the guy that would actually be the answer at center for the Seahawks, but they decided to let go for some reason.
I mean, I watched a bit of him, and it's only a bit.
Yeah.
But his kind of strengths and weaknesses seem to match his testing, where he's really, really quick off the ball, but he really struggles kind of play strength-wise.
Harris?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
If Olu doesn't beat him out, I'd start to be very concerned about Olu.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That would be a disappointment.
But especially after watching Harris, because Olu, just what he offers you, with just his size, it just offers you so much more displacement ability and potential. So it's valuable to have a centre who can play emergency guard if needed, and I don't think Anthony Bradford should be losing his job to Harris either, but the right guard experience is of value.
Right.
Okay, so next up, the Seahawks have agreed to terms with veteran offensive tackle George Fant, who obviously signed with the Seahawks as an undrafted free agent in 2016 out of Western Kentucky. This is an interesting addition because it's like a left tackle, but he also has some experience playing right tackle. Kind of like he's been a kind of a starter for a bit for the Jets, wasn't he? Let me get this. Yeah, he's a full-time starter. Started 29 games in 2020 and 2021 at right tackle and left tackle for the Jets. And then he spent 2023 with the Texans, appearing in 16 games with 13 starts. I think he got banged up in 2022. So,
right, he's
that. Yeah, go ahead, Griff.
Well, I was going to say it does seem like a significant move because I wouldn't be shocked if some team signed him with the intention of him like starting. So this move, even though it's not like expensive, it definitely it's indicative a little bit of they're not 100% certain Lucas will be ready to go. And then secondly, it probably puts them out of drafting a tackle. Not that we thought they were going to be drafting a tackle to play tackle, but there was some thought, with Lucas. Some people were saying they needed to draft a tackle and a guard. If they do draft a tackle, it would be a guy that they're probably converting to a guard now, right? But yeah, it kind of narrows down this what is needed at O-line now as well.
Yeah, and it's meant to be a very deep draft that, well, not deep, but there's a lot of top guys that tackle in the draft who, in theory, Seattle might have a shot at one of them with the quarterbacks who may end up going in the top 10. Seattle may have a shot at one of the top guys in the top 16 picks, but realistically, I think probably like the guys they'd feel good about taking in the first round will be gone, and so it's basically saying, look, we need to address this. But it does add concern to Abraham Lucas, who obviously underwent an off-season knee procedure, something Pete Carroll said he needed to have cleaned up, something that Lucas said he hoped would take care of it, and said he knew he needed to take care of it. You have to hedge that. You can't just go into that, just hoping. But it's quite a... Again, we're waiting on the contract terms. I haven't seen the financials behind this deal, but it's a strong hedge, a very strong hedge. So
Right.
if Lucas can go, it would be interesting if they ever fiddled around with one of these guys playing inside at guard. I know left guard right now, where Damian Lewis obviously has departed, gone to the Carolina Panthers. Could you see with Fant able to play left tackle, could you see a massive Stone Forsyth inside at guard? Like, they've got he obviously has some experience there. Could you see something like that? Could you see Lucas play right guard and Fant play right tackle? That seems way too many moving parts, but it does add some versatility, or it frees up other guys potentially if they wanted to do that, to get more options, because they still haven't signed a left guard. They don't have a left guard. Maybe it's just Phil Haynes returning on the cheap, but the starter at left guard, a solid starter who, he missed a couple of games here and there, but it was like one a season. Like Damian Lewis is gone. So this draft is also strong at guard, but you might have to spend a pretty high pick to get one who you feel good about slotting in immediately, even if it is positional value. But it might be they don't have a second round pick right now. So
Right. Yeah, it's interesting situation we're in. I think they really don't have that much functional cap space left. Smart people have been posting about it. It's interesting to think that the Leonard Williams trade is essentially, like, I thought when they cut Quandre Diggs, I thought, okay, they're ensuring that they're bringing Jordan Brooks back. It's interesting that the really it was to just secure Leonard Williams. So it's interesting that the Leonard Williams trade, well, Draymond Jones underperforming forced the Leonard Williams trade, and then the Leonard Williams trade took them out of the running to be able to keep together their, well, either one or both of Quandre Diggs and Jordan Brooks. So it's just an interesting little, I don't know, string of events there. But it's kind of unfortunate that they didn't really have as much financial flexibility as we thought they did, maybe. Or maybe they just really didn't like the linebacker free agency class, which is strange considering that it's not a fact that it's a bad linebacker draft class, but it is a fact that there's a consensus that it is. And so, I don't know, just having dove into the linebackers, it really only feels like there's 4 guys that would even be quality at worst, at best, rather.
yeah,
Maybe 2 guys that have Pro Bowl potential. And there's a lot of teams that need linebackers. So I don't know. Interesting situation they're in.
Well, you've taken us nicely, Griffin, to the fact that Jordan Brooks obviously went elsewhere, and you could with the state of the draft, and maybe it's not too strong at tight end, but there's some interesting options. But it's a very interesting positional value discussion, and just a player versus player discussion of would you rather have Noah Fant or would you rather have Jordyn Brooks? I was amazed at some of the comments we got underneath our last podcast on Jordyn Brooks. People were watching a different thing to us, but what it means is inside linebacker right now, the projected starters are Drake Thomas and Patrick O'Connell with Jon Rhattigan in reserve, which is pretty yikes. Now, obviously, Mike McDonald's coming from a defense where it absolutely transformed when Roquan Smith was added to Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen, a first-round pick, one pick after Jordyn Brooks. And Roquan Smith, he was a first-round pick, wasn't he? And an unreal type of player who they felt really good about. So he knows the importance and the impact of having two quality linebackers on a defense. But right now, Seattle doesn't have that. And the free agency window has really gone quick. And so currently still free agents at the time of recording, 3:55 a.m. my time on a Wednesday night / Thursday morning. We have Tyrell Dodson, Devin White, Devin Bush, Zach Cunningham, Cody Barton is still unsigned names. I could talk myself into all of those if I really needed to, but ultimately it's not having a Jordyn Brooks, and it's definitely not having a Roquan Smith and a Patrick Queen together on the field. It's a pretty rough state of affairs. And it kind of leaves me wondering, is Mike McDonald kind of in year one of installing his system, which is always going to be predicated on the threat of pressure and the illusion of pressure? Is he also going to ramp up the pressure rates and the blitz rates to compensate for year one shaky inside linebacker position? Sort of knowing that they're not going to be good, but for like installing your mentality and how your principles. Are we going to start by sending all this pressure, and then in year two, we've established that we're going to send the pressure. We know how the pressure works, and we know that's part of our identity, but we can scale it back like he did with Baltimore, particularly when a Roquan Smith arrived. But right now, things look rough.
Yeah, it's a huge hole on the roster beyond a doubt. So. And they know that. It's not like I'm not sitting here going like, what are they doing? I'm not doing that rhetorically. I'm asking that like sincerely. Like surely, like they know they don't have any linebackers on the roster. They know what's left in free agency. We can all look it up. We know who's out there. We know that those names aren't particularly exciting. It's even hard to get excited about them through the lens of, well, they bring a floor of play at weak side linebacker, and then if you can find a Mike, then it can all mix together well. I don't even feel that way about the potential wills. So it's pretty wild, And even if you draft your linebacker that you really really like, rookie linebackers, you don't always know what you're getting there anyway. I mean that goes for any position, but so much about the middle linebacker position is like assignment correctness, like it even more so than any other position, right? Like if you're a really talented pass rusher, you can get by on your talent, but at linebacker, it doesn't matter how fast you are if your eyes are in the wrong place. It doesn't matter. If that wasn't true, then so many guys would have hit that didn't. That's how KJ Wright could still be as good as he was, probably running a 4.8 in 2020 and registering one of the best seasons of his career. So it's like you said, like because they aren't anticipating having really good linebackers in 2023 or in 2024, does that mean they're adapting the scheme to like just blitz them a lot because that's simple, it's easy, it's scheme doing the heavy lifting there? Is it going to be even more disguise where they're banking on the disguise doing the heavy lifting? They're just dropping to a spot and just hoping the confusion wins the day and not actually playing their keys and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Isn't it just? Now, in terms of looking ahead to the draft, we'll have time to do that, but Justin M at Justin M _ NFL, who does the NFL and NFL draft for the Draft Network, reported that Tyrese Knight, UTEP linebacker, who was at the 2024 Senior Bowl, and honestly, I'll have to go back and watch him, but he didn't necessarily stand out to me, but he has an upcoming top 30 visit with the New York Giants and the Seattle Seahawks. He ran a 4.63 seconds 40 with a 1.54 seconds 10-yard split. He also had okay jumps, and he's just over 6 foot, like 6'1.5", and 233 pounds, which is pretty dense, even though it's only 233 pounds. And his arms are 32.5 inches over the 32-inch kind of threshold, which they'd like. Good luck getting UTEP film. So that Senior Bowl stuff is going to be important for us to dive into. I'm sure there's other linebackers they're looking at as well. Yeah, that's a name. But yeah, like you said, Griff, relying just on the draft, it cannot be a thing. So, I mean, look, I know Devin White's kind of a meme, but if he's like in a Patrick Queen style thing where he's blitzed quite a bit, I don't know. It's very interesting to see what they do. Fascinating few days for the linebacker position. Also, I still feel like, and they are kind of, as you've pointed out, the cap stuff is getting a bit tight now. I'd kind of be surprised if they don't try and add like a big nickel type. Like there was all this talk about like a Jeremy Chin. I don't know how much it's the media inferring that, hey, remember they had in Baltimore, they had the tool safety Kyle Hamilton, and he played the big nickel. Also, they need a tool safety to do that in Seattle, versus actual Seattle interest in that type of player. But, you know, they've mentioned how Light Witherspoon got playing in the nickel last year. You kind of want him to be an outside corner as well. You know, just looking at, I would expect them to sign another safety, even with like a Jarek Reed looking pretty good. I think he's more of a deep type safety though. A big nickel would be intriguing. And so there's all these types of names. There's Isaiah Simmons, who I don't know what he is, but he's still unsigned. Then just reading the safety names, there's a lot of guys who I'm like, that guy, he used to be good, or he might have something. And let's see what, he's still unsigned. That's interesting. So let me just rattle them off. So Jamal Adams, Justin Simmons, Buda Baker, Eddie Jackson, Quandre Diggs, Tracy Walker. No, don't do that. Marcus May, Jaron Kursk, Adrian Phillips, Nick Scott, Mike Edwards, Deshaun Gibson, Micah Hyde, who's 33. Let me read out one more. Terrell Edmonds, Keanu Neal, and Ryan Neal. Who, by the way, Ryan Neal, that's a real kind of value opportunity for you, because that was Pro Football Focus's #1 ranked safety for the 2022 season. It's time to move.
Very interesting.
It's time to move. Value. So yeah, Griff. Could also be that they sign a safety to play weak side inside backer, and they're just completely going crazy with it.
Well, there is one such safety on the market who's played a little dime wheel before.
Oh, would you Keanu Neal?
He has done that technically, but no, not him. He's recently been cut.
Marcus May used to be good, and then
he was, and then he wasn't.
He's 30. Didn't he have a really bad injury though?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. So fascinating times ahead for Seattle. And I'm also anxious to see what numbers George Fant gets given, because Ryan Grubb needs, if Abraham Lucas is healthy, I need there to be a scenario where Ryan Grubb trots out George Fant wearing a very similar looking jersey number to Noah Fant, and they're both playing tight end, maybe some tackle over shenanigans. I need their identities to blur into one, and it to result in a George Fant touchdown. Is that too much to ask?
No.
I thought we had a creative offense in Seattle now. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
but we'll spiral. Don't we'll have time to spiral. Don't worry.
Yeah, the spy. Well, honestly, I think patting ourselves on the back here, we're doing a great job. Like we haven't melted down too much.
I saw that we were accused of spiraling in the YouTube chat. I
Oh,
thought we were pretty measured when we talked about
what?
the in the last episode. I thought we were pretty measured, but I mean, yeah, I'm not happy about a good player walking out the door. But we talked about why we thought that, like what their rationale was and what the plan was moving forward. In fairness, what is the plan at linebacker? Nobody knows. Um,
That is a
so
fair question. It's the thumbnail for a reason.
yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Now it's going to be funny if like the numbers come out. Um, it's going to be funny if the numbers come out and it's like 5 million for Darrell Taylor with incentives. That's going to piss people off. Um,
For how many years?
well, probably for one. Well, what if it's like a 2 year, $11 million deal or something? People will be pissed. Um, I'm sure it's like 1 year, 3 million. That's
So,
my guess.
yeah, I mean, I'm too stupid. I don't understand. What's the if they could have got him to sign a restricted free agent contract? Why couldn't they just do that? Like, it has to be multiple years, right? This extension, no.
I don't know. I don't. Well, why would you give him multiple years? I don't know.
Now,
Maybe avoid
what's the
year.
benefit here?
I think they just went as cheap as possible, probably, and they're just like depth. And if it works out, great. I mean, granted, Kyle Van Noy got edge rush production. Now, I don't actually believe you can't turn a pass rusher into a better pass rusher. You are what you are. I don't believe in pass rush specialist coaches. That doesn't exist. I mean, to an extent, okay, but like guys don't develop. They just are either you're talented and you got it or you don't when it comes to that stuff. I mean, you need fast twitch and extreme level of hand-eye coordination and feel. That's a natural thing. You either have it or you don't. I'm not saying there isn't like, yeah, of course those guys get better, but you either have it or you don't. Darrell Taylor's case, he has technique. He has a rush plan. He just doesn't have play strength. He doesn't need BT Jordan. He needs steroids. He needs to put on 15 pounds of
Okay,
lean body mass.
okay. As
That's
just
what he's missing.
as the Seattle Overload podcast, the official statement here, we do not condone the use of performance enhancing drugs.
No. He needs creatine and chicken. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
And some
Bit
squats.
bit of like whole grain rice.
Yeah, whole grain rice, and some pre-workout. Nothing beyond that.
Yeah. Thank you. Ricardo, I'm puzzled by the outward love to some Seattle players in this podcast. Our coaching staff and the rest of the league doesn't value them at the same level. Ricardo, Jordan Brooks, okay? Jordan Brooks. He signed
a $30 million deal, right?
yes, coming off to like an injury like hampered season towards the back end a year before. Obviously, he did his knee and did that over the off season. I think that's the league valuing him, and he was one of the first. Like he signed before Patrick Queen. So yeah, I don't know what you're getting at there, Ricardo. He was also taken in the first round, which again is the league valuing him. Anyway, never mind. Right. Finally, on linebackers, good for Bobby Wagner, elite free agent, Hall of Fame agent, and Hall of Fame player.
He's got these guys by the necks. I don't know what he's doing in negotiations, but
So Bobby Wagner, the All-Pro, signed with the Washington Commanders on a 1-year deal worth a max value of $8.5 million, including $6 million in guarantees, reuniting with Dan Quinn and Ken Norton Jr. as his linebacker coach.
good for Bobby. I love that. I mean,
Legend.
I don't know. I wonder how they plan to use him. Do they just kind of let him do the same thing where he can just attack his gap and then go play the running back in coverage. I don't know if they have the DBs to play a bunch of cover one. If they do, that's good for him because then he can just be man on the back. So
Yeah, that's what like. Surely the vision is that they're just going to try and transition into being like a man coverage team, a bit like Quinn did in Dallas, and then occasionally their change up will be like spinning into Tampa 2, where Bobby can still run north-south down the pipe, although it might get a bit scary.
I kind of wish they didn't sign Luvu because I want to know what Dan Quinn and Ken Norton Jr. think about the linebackers in the class. But they won't draft one now. Well, they might draft one to hedge Bobby for next season.
You haven't called them up?
Very curious what they think.
You haven't given them a bell?
No, but we could just parse it by what their draft behavior is like.
What Luvu? Who's Luvu?
He was the guy that Carolina let go.
Ah, I see. Right.
Oh yeah, Matty, did you see that Sherman responded to me again?
I did. But unfortunately, he didn't give you what you were looking for. I don't think.
I was shocked. I mean, granted, like you said, he's not in the linebacker rooms, but he had no idea what I was talking about.
But like you should have asked him, like, when do you? You should have asked him the DB thing, Griff.
I know I should have, but it was on the topic of Bobby, and I was like, well, if he's talking about Bobby, if I show him a play,
no, you did well. You did well.
But it's funny though. It's funny though that so much is like, he's not in the linebacker room. He doesn't know what they're coaching the linebackers because he's not there. You know.
He doesn't need he needs to know a few things. He needs to know that route's going to get handled by a linebacker, not him.
Like he knows it. I mean, don't get me wrong. He knows a shit ton about linebacker play, but only through his lens as a corner. Like, but it's funny because to me, I naively assumed that's like a universal term that just gets thrown around, and it's not.
Right. Richard Sherman hasn't watched the Seattle linebacker coach explaining their defense in the 2015 offseason in a Seattle high school. And using the term panic drop,
And but see, Glenn didn't use that term either, though. So that's why I was asking. So I wanted to know.
Oh, that's right. Was it who did use panic drop?
So we know that Bo Pelini uses the term.
Oh,
we also heard Bobby in a presser say "you panic out." He used the phrase "you panic out" on play action.
That's right.
But we never got it. That's the only other time we've heard it.
Bo Pelini, Mr. Curl Sale. Absolutely incredible. Okay. Are we done? Chat, like the video. Comment what you want to see from us. We'll probably have like a bumper inside linebacker episode. Maybe we'll actually get to talk about some free agents. Maybe like take a look at the tape. I might have to watch this Tyrese Knight guy again. Yeah, we'll have lots of content coming. We'll try to do at least 2 a week. We've done 2 a week already this week. We're doing well. And subscribe to the channel. Follow Griff at CMikeSpinMove. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. Follow the pod at Seattle Overload. Hopefully I don't have a cold next time we record. Apologies that I'm so nasally and sniffly. Right, Griff. Closing wisdom, thoughts, stuff?
Never.
Oh dear. Never. That's not true.
Hit it, Matty.